I had been a lapdog for Kevin for 8 years. And he was finally moved by me. But on the second day after we got together, Kevin's first love came back to the country. In the private box, Zoe drew a roof or dare challenge. And she had to have a passionate kiss with a member of the opposite sex present for 3 minutes. Everyone started to cheer and make a ruckus. But only Kevin had a gloomy expression on his face. Can't we play something more decent? This time doesn't count. Zoe. You draw again. He spoke with a righteous air. But when Zoe held his cheeks in both hands and gently pressed her lips against his, Kevin immediately took the initiative. He didn't shy away from the fact that I was there and kissed Zoe's lips until they were swollen and red. I couldn't stand it anymore and got up in a hurry. My calf was cut open by the sharp table, and blood was flowing profusely. Kevin just gave me a glance during the passionate kiss. There's still a minute and a half left. Wait for me. I'll take you to the hospital later. I had waited for Kevin for 8 years. But for this minute and a half, I didn't want to wait anymore. It was the 3rd hour that I was waiting at Kevin's doorstep with a cake. When Kevin's friend passed by me, he asked, Yvonne, did Kevin ask you to wait this turn? Or did you want to wait on your own? Last night, Kevin agreed to my 36th confession and officially became my boyfriend. We had a video call until very late. Before going to bed, Kevin mumbled, I want to eat cake. I heard it and rushed over with the cake early in the morning. But perhaps I came too early. Kevin wasn't awake yet. I knocked on the door several times. But there was no response from inside the house. So I just waited quietly and didn't urge him anymore. But after hearing what I said, Kevin's friend burst out laughing. What do you mean he's not awake? Sister Zoe's flight back to the country is at 11 o'clock today. Kevin went to the airport to pick her up. The cake that I had been holding for a long time suddenly seemed as heavy as 1,000 cat ties. I raised my hand and covered my stuffy chest. But I forced myself to smile. Which airport is it? Do you want me to go there and help too? Kevin's friend probably didn't expect me to react like this. He gave me a headache-inducing look and quickly waved his hand, motioning for me to get in the car. At the entrance of the private club, Kevin's friend walked in ahead of me. Yvonne, wait a while before going in. In case Kevin gets angry when he sees you, don't implicate me. My tired face was reflected in the building materials in the corridor. I realized belatedly that I probably shouldn't have shown up, but before I could turn around and leave, my phone buzzed and vibrated. And I received a belated message from Kevin. Yvonne, go home first. There's something going on in my company today. And I can't accompany you. I sent the message at 10:55. I got a reply full of lies 4 hours later. Kevin went to the airport to pick up Zoe. And he must have been awake before 11 o'clock. But between accompanying Zoe and asking me to go home, Kevin chose to let me wait in the cold wind. Looking at the message on the screen, I didn't know how to react. The next second, I saw Zoe holding Kevin's hand appear at the end of the corridor. Kevin, I heard that you're in a relationship. You came to pick up your first love. Won't your girlfriend be unhappy? She doesn't count. Zoe smiled coquettously. Doesn't count? Doesn't count as your girlfriend? Or doesn't care about these little things? After Zoe finished speaking, Kevin's dark eyes fell on her. He didn't say a word. But it seemed as if he had said 1,000 words. Zoe's cheeks turned red from his gaze. And she complained with a smile. What are you doing? Can't I even make a joke? Do you really take her that seriously? Kevin shook his head. You know that's not what I mean. Then what do you mean? Zoe tilted her head in confusion. Kevin met her gaze. Zoe, we've known each other for more than 10 years. No one is more important than you. Yvonne. Before Kevin could finish, the packaging of the cake that had been with me for a long time suddenly split open and hit my foot. Ma'am. Are you okay? Seeing this, the waiters rushed over to wipe it for me. Kevin frowned and looked in this direction, annoyed by their noise. After clearly seeing me surrounded in the middle, a trace of guilt flashed across his face very quickly. Yvonne? Are you spying on me? Kevin suspected that I was following him and looked at me coldly. But after seeing the messy cake on my foot, he still took out a handkerchief from his pocket. Yvonne. Why are you so stupid? If I want to eat cake, I can buy it myself. You don't need to go to so much trouble. Kevin always gets what he wants. It was indeed my own self-indulgence. I kept my head down and didn't say anything. Zoe beside me obviously looked me up and down with her eyes and smiled gently. Kevin. You and your girlfriend are so cute together. Let her join my welcome banquet too. When Zoe spoke, Kevin didn't refuse. And he didn't allow me to refuse either. He pushed me into the private box. But he sat in the main seat with Zoe, leaving me squeezed into the corner of the sofa. Sister Zoe. You're even more beautiful after not seeing you for a few years. No wonder Kevin can't forget you, and has been faithful to you for several years. Kevin and Zoe's mutual friend surrounded them and teased them. Only after saying that did they cover their lips and pretend to be surprised. Hey. You there. You don't mind me saying this, do you? Hey, having fulfilled my obsession. You there was a nickname that Kevin gave me. Later, his friends followed suit. Although I was uncomfortable, I never corrected them. But with the address Sister Zoe in front, when the words hey, you there appeared again, I couldn't help but frown. I have a name. If you want to praise Zoe, just do it well. Don't bring in irrelevant people. Kevin interrupted impatiently, cutting off the words I had just said. A certain emotion that I couldn't understand flashed in his dark eyes. It was like a warning. And also like disgust. He seemed to be very afraid of what I might say. I looked at him, opened my mouth, but didn't make a sound. But suddenly, Zoe stuffed a playing card into my tightly clenched fingers. Hey, Kevin sailed land session. You there. Play a game of truth or dare with us. You can drink alcohol. Right? With Zoe organizing it. The game started quickly. In the first round, the ace of clubs in Kevin's hand was selected by the host. The host chose the truth option for him and asked with a mischievous look. Ace of clubs. Please answer. When was the last time you kissed someone? It was last Thursday. That day, there was a power outage at Kevin's house. He was so nervous that he was shaking and subconsciously called me. I rushed over in a hurry. As soon as I opened the door, I was trapped in Kevin's arms and kissed. You made a half-hour journey in just 16 minutes. Yvonne. Did you run a red light for me? Kevin was afraid of the dark. And his voice was so pitiful in the quiet darkness. Like a frightened puppy. My heart softened completely. And I let him hold me without struggling. I remember this incident very clearly. But Kevin directly picked up the wine glass. I forgot. I'll drink 3 glasses. The high-concentration alcohol was sent into Kevin's stomach without hesitation. When he finished drinking 1 glass and was about to pick up the second glass, Zoe extended her fingertips and pressed on the tiger's mouth of his hand. If you can't answer, choose another question. Kevin, when was the last time you kissed me? Do you still remember? As soon as these words came out, there was an overwhelming burst of cheering and uproar in the private box. Through the crowd, I saw the uncontrollable surging love in Kevin's eyes. He almost indignantly answered Zoe. I remember. It was in Lyon. Yunnan, Yuman out alone sorry. On Jade Dragon Snow Mountain. Kevin and Zoe were childhood sweethearts. Kevin told me this himself when I confessed to him for the 15th time. At that time, Kevin opened the safe in his house, and threw all 5 thick photo albums of him and Zoe in front of me. Yvonne. Can't you understand what I'm saying? The kind of girl I like is like this. Your cheap love makes me sick. You don't really think that bringing me meals every day can move me, do you? Then I might as well spend my whole life with the cook. At that time, Kevin's company was just starting up. He drank so much that he had a perforated stomach. But he stubbornly refused to bow to his family. I felt sorry for him. So I brought 3 meals a day to visit him in the hospital. I cooked a total of 90 meals in a continuous stream, exhausting myself to the point of looking haggard. The result I got was this. Kevin pasted a photo of Zoe playing the gukyu under the Eiffel Tower in front of me. Yvonne. The kind of girl I like is like this. Do you understand? Zoe was very fond of music and didn't want to give up either classical music or Western music. She and Kevin were in a relationship for 2 years. On the day Kevin proposed to her, she broke up with him. Sorry. Kevin. I want the trophy for new music more than a diamond ring. They parted on bad terms. Soon, Zoe flew abroad and entered the Best Art Academy for further study. But before that, Zoe and Kevin completed a breakup list. Taking wedding photos on the top of the snow mountain was one of the items on the list. After Zoe left Beijing, Kevin used that photo as his wallpaper for 3 years. In the 4th year, Kevin was framed by his opponent, and his car malfunctioned on the mountain road. I sensed something was wrong and, regardless of everything, drove the newly bought Porsche and forced him to stop against the mountain wall. The impact was so strong. The airbag that popped out instantly broke 3 of my ribs. A newly bought car was also completely totaled. During that hospital stay, Kevin accompanied me in the hospital for half a month. Later, I never saw that photo on Kevin's screen again. I thought that he had let go. But now it seems I thought too much. If you two can't let go of each other so much, you might as well get back together. Amid the cheers, someone tried to bring them back together. I felt very tired. I casually picked up a bottle of beverage and opened it, no longer looking at Kevin. A few seconds later, Kevin's slender hand handed me a glass of freshly squeezed orange juice. Yvonne, drink this. Don't drink alcohol. There was a faint hint of concern in Kevin's voice. The atmosphere was quiet for a second because of his words. But the next moment, Zoe started the game again. Let's continue with the truth or dare. Hurry up. Hurry up. In the 2nd round, the jack of clubs in Zoe's hand was selected by the host. She chose the dare option herself, carefully drew a card, and before the host could tell everyone what was on the card, she fell into Kevin's arms with a laugh. Kevin. Look. It's exactly what I thought. Sister Zoe. What did you draw? Someone asked. Zoe lazily handed the card over, stroked her smooth hair in front of her chest, and said generously, kiss any member of the opposite sex present for 3 minutes. Who among you is willing? Zoe was a beautiful woman of the bright and charming type. She had fair skin, a beautiful face, and a hot figure. Seeing that Kevin didn't speak, everyone started to play and cheer. Me. Sister Zoe. Look at me. You. Choose me. Not him. He's a heavy smoker. And his mouth stinks. They chattered on and on, heating up the atmosphere again. In the boiling room, only Kevin had a serious face and impatiently spoke up. Can't we play something more decent? This time doesn't count. Zoe. You draw again. As soon as he opened his mouth, everyone burst into laughter as if they had achieved their goal. Sister Zoe. Look at Kevin. He's jealous. Kevin frowned. Don't talk nonsense. Everyone burst into laughter. Zoe also smiled, but she was smiling at me. Hey, Kevin fulfilled blind session. You know, I'm going to give Kevin a kiss. You don't mind, do you? After all, I'm your senior. I should have this little privilege. Right? As soon as Zoe finished speaking, everyone turned their eyes to my face. Only then did they finally think of the post Kevin made on his WeChat moments last night. She's so annoying. I've resigned myself to it. Kevin showed off the 36th confession I made to him on WeChat. In the screenshot, I said to Kevin, I really like you. Would you like to be my boyfriend? Kevin didn't reply to me, but he announced his relationship on his WeChat moments. After that, we had a video call for over 2 hours. But today, when Zoe looked at me with a provocative look in her eyes, Kevin just stood there silently and watched me being humiliated because of him. At that moment, I suddenly felt that it was extremely boring. Whatever. After getting the answer, Zoe turned around, cupped Kevin's cheeks, and smiled triumphantly. Kevin, lucky then. I'm going to kiss you. Okay? Kevin didn't say anything and didn't refuse either. But the moment Zoe kissed him, he raised his eyebrows, and with a very possessive gesture, he put his arm around her waist and pulled her into his arms. In that instant, the cheers around almost pierced my eardrums. I stared at them kissing for a moment, then picked up my bag and stood up. If Kevin doesn't like me, I can wait. But I can't accept that the man I've been waiting for 8 years has no bottom line like this. I got up too quickly, and my calf accidentally hit the sharp edge of the coffee table. Blood gushed out in an instant. I gasped in pain and frowned slightly. Over there. Kevin cast a quick glance at me amidst his business ends. Without separating from Zoe for even a second, he mumbled a promise to me. Yvonne. It's still 1.5 minutes. Wait for me. Between my round and Zoe's victory in the game, Kevin chose the latter. I didn't look at him or respond. I limped to the door, opened it, and walked out without looking back. Outside, the cold wind was as sharp as a knife. I wrapped my coat tightly around me, took out my phone from my bag, and sent a message to Kevin. Kevin. Let's break up. After sending the message, 15 minutes later, Kevin finally replied. Yvonne. Where are you? Why can't I find you? He said he was looking for me. That there were only me and a valet guy at the entrance of the club. I gave a bitter smile for a moment, then raised my hand to hail a taxi and left. Kevin, on the other hand, was persistent. Yvonne. You just left like this. Where's Zoe's dignity? You agreed to it just now. Why are you being such a spoilsport now? Zoe is crying because of you. Hurry back and apologize to her. During the time I was pursuing Kevin, he was like a cold mountain. He didn't allow me to get close. Climb, hadn't my sigh. Conquer. Or possess him. Yet he would be stirred up for Zoe again and again. Looking at the continuous stream of messages Kevin sent, I sneered warily. Forget it. A forced love is neither sweet nor quenching. I don't want Kevin anymore. At the hospital, I registered, queued up, and had my wound treated. On my way home, I received a call from Kevin's stepmother. Yvonne. You bitch. Where have you been fooling around? Why haven't you come yet? The guests have been waiting for you for half an hour. If you're not dead on the road, crawl over here right now. After Kevin's biological mother died during childbirth, his father got married 3 more times and successively found 3 stepmothers for him. The current Kevin's mother is only 4 years older than Kevin, but she has already given birth to 2 sons for Kevin's father. In order for her own children to get more inheritance, she often tries to drive a wedge between Kevin and his father. And because I'm loyal to Kevin, she often insults me in every way. I endured it for Kevin's sake before. But at this moment, listening to the abusive words spitting out from Kevin's stepmother on the other end of the phone, I suddenly lost my patience. Who are you talking to? My tone was as cold as ice. Kevin's mother. You fought for your position. But my background, Yvonne's background, is something I was born into. You curse me to die. Guess who will die first if one of us has to die? You or me? Kevin's stepmother was stunned by my scolding. You. Yvonne. Are you out of your mind? Don't you know who I am? Her tone weakened a bit. But she still wanted to act like a future mother-in-law in front of me and stubbornly tried to assert herself. I won't argue with you. You little girl. Anyway, having way. You come here quickly. Otherwise, I'll never let my husband agree to your relationship with Kevin. Kevin's stepmother came from a humble background. In order to integrate into Kevin's family circle, she has made good use of my resources over the years, holding banquets and trying to win people over everywhere. Today, she played the same old trick again. She sent out a lot of invitations in my name, but at the last moment, she informed me to go and support her. All because of my unwavering love for Kevin. But this time, Kevin's stepmother miscalculated. I turned off my phone. I went home, cooked myself a bowl of noodles, washed up briefly, and then went straight to bed. 6 hours passed in the blink of an eye. When I got up sleepily to pour some water, there was suddenly the sound of a fingerprint lock being opened outside the door. It was like a refined frame from a movie. Kevin came in from the outside, shivering with cold. His eyebrows were furrowed with nervousness and anxiety. It was only when he saw me standing by the island counter, quietly drinking water. Yvonne. Why didn't you answer the phone? Kevin's mother is going crazy looking for you. She even called me. You know I hate her the most. Why are you forcing me to face her? Yvonne. You were the one who said, whatever yourself. You've already agreed. So why are you taking revenge on me with this matter? Kevin's eyes were bloodshot. And he was furious. He roared at me as if he was venting his anger. I didn't show any emotion on my face. After he finished shouting, I raised my hand and pointed to the door. Kevin's mother is your mother. If you're not satisfied with her way of doing things, go talk to your father. Check the text message I sent you this afternoon. If you break in without notice next time, I'll call the police. As I spoke, I deleted all the fingerprints he had entered into the system right in front of Kevin. Kevin had been dumped abruptly before, and he could never fill the void of his lack of security. When I cared about him, he could freely unlock my password lock, tablet, computer, and even my 2 mobile phones. But now, he didn't deserve it anymore. Yvonne, stop making trouble. Kevin was shocked by my distant attitude. He suddenly stepped forward and wrapped his arms around me. I didn't mean to take it out on you. It's just that you were so good before. And I was suddenly forced to face those disgusting things. And I didn't react in time. Kevin apologized quickly. And he was very sincere. After being together for 8 years, he knew when I was pretending to be angry and acting coquettously, and when I was truly disheartened. If it weren't for that, I wouldn't have been hooked by him and wasted so much of my youth. Get away. I frowned and pried apart Kevin's fingers. And then poured the last bit of water in the cup directly onto his face. Kevin, don't touch me with your dirty hands. I'm afraid of getting infected. The image of Kevin and Zoe kissing lingered in my mind. The places where Kevin had touched me visibly developed a layer of goosenst. People of the air elements Ardiac are clear about their likes and dislikes. After seeing that scene with my own eyes, I was really disgusted by Kevin's approach. Yvonne, are you going to keep this up? Kevin tried both soft and hard tactics. Seeing that I was unmoved, the bad temper that I had spoiled for 8 years in him emerged from the bottom of his heart. He almost said to me viciously, Yvonne, if you keep making trouble, do you believe I'll make you chase me for another 8 years? My sunk cost was too high. And Kevin was certain that I wouldn't let go of him easily. But at this moment, looking at his smug face, the heart that had been moved by him countless times could no longer stir up any waves. I raised my hand again and silently asked Kevin to leave. Kevin was furious. After saying, fine 3 times in a row, before leaving, he heavily threw the jade guanyi and pendant around his neck in front of me. Yvonne, you'll regret this. Kevin's numerology showed that he lacked the element of earth. This jade guanyi and pendant was something I specially used my family's connections to get for him. At first, Kevin said he didn't believe in such things. Later, after learning the name of the master who blessed the pendant, he never let it leave his body. It was also from then on that Kevin's company gradually started to thrive, and his luck and wealth grew exponentially every day. Kevin's friends had teased him about this countless times. There are jade guanyi and pendants everywhere. Why is the one Yvonne gave you so effective? Could it be that she's the earth element you're lacking? Kevin, just given already. After hearing such remarks many times and looking at the jade guanyi and pendant around Kevin's neck, which was in perfect condition, my heart would always inexplicably soften. The emerald green guanyi and pendant was of great value from any angle. When Kevin threw it with force, one corner of the guanyi and pendant hit the ground heavily. The once perfect work of art instantly shattered into pieces. I looked down at it, showing neither joy nor sorrow. Only after Kevin left did I carefully put the fragments into a handkerchief. My love for Kevin has vanished. And naturally, he has to return the things I gave him one by one. This jade guanyi and pendant is just the first one. In the future, he still has a lot to return. In the next few days, I stayed at home and recuperated from my injury. After my calf was completely healed, I contacted a real estate agent and planned to sell the house that Kevin had once freely entered and exited. But the real estate agent hadn't found a new buyer for me yet. A news article that suddenly popped up on my phone screen caught my attention. There was a sudden strong earthquake in the northwest. Overnight, there were no more houses there. And the people who had survived the disaster were in urgent need of food and medicine. Looking at the panicked faces on the screen, I was deeply touched. I urgently allocated a batch of supplies overnight and personally escorted them to the northwest. The journey was long, with mountains and rivers in between, and the signal was intermittent. When I finally reached the epicenter of the earthquake and was helping the volunteers carry the supplies, the phone attached to my thigh vibrated buzzing. Kevin, who always likes to use the Cold War to force people to compromise, sent me a vague message. Yvonne. My stomach hurts. Come and pick me up. The voice message wasn't long, but I could easily tell that Kevin was drunk. He has a weak stomach and can't stand strong liquor. If I had received this message 2 weeks ago, I would definitely have rushed over worriedly. But at this moment, I was busy handing out bread and mineral water to the people in the disaster area. I just sneered and sent a voice message to Kevin. We've broken up. Kevin. Don't be so shameless. Sister. Can I have two? QIU is also hungry. The girl, whose face was covered in dust, looked at me with clear eyes. She had just been rescued. Yet she was already taking care of the puppy that had also been rescued not long ago. The little girl and the puppy with a sharp chin due to hunger both looked at me. I quickly stuffed 2 loaves of bread and more food into her arms. While feeling glad that she still had a bright future ahead, I couldn't help but shed tears. I'll stay here for a long time. If you need anything, you can come to me. Thank you, sister. The little girl bowed to me timidly. I quickly perked up and continued distributing supplies. This earthquake was a natural disaster, but with the concerted efforts of all parties, the rescue and relief work showed an extraordinary speed. As a negligible part of it, I blended in with the volunteers and tried my best to provide help to the victims. And without realizing it, I became concerned about this lovely girl. The girl's family of 7 lived together. When the earthquake occurred, the girl was herding sheep on the mountain and was lucky enough to escape the disaster. But all her relatives were buried deep under the rubble. The rescue lasted for a full 7 days and nights. When the first body was dug out from the ruins, the girl burst into tears. Mom. Mom. The mother, who had lost her breath, couldn't respond to the girl. When the girl was tired from crying, her small body curled up, and she fell asleep beside me. Sister. The uncle doctor said that Mom will turn into a star and come to see me in my dreams. He didn't lie to me. Did he? From a few meters away, I looked at the young doctor, whose eyes were red from exhaustion and who was still doing the rescue work. I felt a warmth in my heart. When I looked back at the little girl, I finally had words to comfort her. The uncle doctor is right. Your mom will always be watching over you in the sky. Then I don't want Mom to worry. I will eat well, sleep well, and grow up well. As the girl spoke, she curled up and fell asleep beside me. I looked at her, all alone, and at her family members whose heads were covered with white cloth. The tears that had been welling up in my eyes for a long time finally fell. I cried because the girl was too young to understand what she had lost. I also cried because I was powerless and could only watch the tragedy unfold. I bit my lip and cried silently. But the tears kept falling one by one, and I couldn't stop them. Until a white light flashed ahead. A sneaky figure with a mobile phone walked past me, but deliberately turned his face away and didn't look at me. Who was taking a photo of me secretly? And what was their purpose? I didn't have time to look into it deeply, but I didn't expect that this photo would end up in Kevin's hands. On this day, Kevin so felt wad sai. I was tidying up supplies with the volunteers. The girl suddenly gently tugged at the hem of my clothes. Sister. That brother has been looking at you. Huh? I turned my head following her gaze. In the ruins all over the ground, I saw Kevin wearing a casual suit. He was holding a bouquet of flowers in his hand. He was wearing thin leather shoes with red soles on his feet. When he saw that my long hair was tied up, I had no makeup on, and I was wearing a volunteer vest covered in dust. A trace of surprise flashed in his eyes, but he still reluctantly came closer and held the flowers out in front of me. Yvonne. Instead of hiding here and crying, you might as well apologize to me a few more times. You clearly can't let go of me. Why do you still have to be stubborn and say angry words? Haven't you ever thought about what you would do if I really didn't give you a way out? As Kevin spoke, he turned his mobile phone towards me. The photo of me shedding tears for my fellow countrymen. He thought it was a melodramatic act. I looked at him, arrogant and conceited, and sneered. Kevin. You really can always disappoint people. The first time I met Kevin was at a charity foundation. As the initiator of this event, he stood on the podium and described the seals trapped in fishing nets that he saw while diving when he was on an expedition in the Arctic. He also talked about the melting ice floes and the polar bears with less and less living space. Halfway through his speech, he was so excited that a tear rolled down his face. Kevin had a handsome appearance, a tall and straight figure, and an extraordinary temperament. When such a person showed a compassionate and tolerant side in front of me, I could hardly restrain the fluttering of my heart. But, Yvonne, what do you mean by that? Seeing that I had a completely indifferent expression on my face, Kevin, who had just assumed a haughty posture waiting for me to admit my mistake, instantly gritted his teeth. I've already taken the initiative to give you a way out. What else do you want? I advise you to put away your temper quickly and go back to Beijing with me. Zoe proposed to me yesterday. If you don't hold on to me quickly. Kevin's words, full of arrogance, were interrupted halfway. Shi interrupted infuriately. Yvonne, do you need any help? Shi was a doctor who volunteered to support the disaster area. He was also the doctor who comforted the girl with a warm lie. These days, because of the girl, we occasionally communicated. When our eyes met, we could infer what items the other person needed without even having to speak. This kind of tacit understanding was very common in the disaster area. But Kevin couldn't accept it at all. The moment he saw Shi, Kevin's face darkened, and so much that it seemed like water could drip from it. Yet he still maintained a calm expression. Are you Yvonne's new friend? She should have mentioned me to you. My name is Kevin. She has been chasing me for 8 years. It's a matter between us as a couple, so you'd better not interfere. Kevin's contemptuous gaze fell on Shi. Yvonne was a woman and not very sensitive. But as a man himself, he could tell that the gaze Shi directed at Yvonne was not innocent. A sense of anxiety, as if his territory had been invaded, welled up in his heart. Kevin didn't even dare to think about what Yvonne and this man had talked about and what they had done together in the past half a month. He wanted to return to the place that made him feel comfortable as soon as possible. The moment when he was deeply loved by Yvonne. So he softened his gaze and casually handed the flowers to me. Yvonne, this bouquet of flowers is my apology to you. I was really in the wrong at the club that day. But you were jealous. Yet you were too awkward to open your mouth and restrain me. You also have some responsibility. Let's call it even. And go back to the way we were before. Okay? If you repeat something 3 times, it loses its charm. I used to repeatedly show my love to Kevin because I thought he was worthy of it. But when an adult says the word break up, it means they have already made a decision at that moment. I don't understand why Kevin doesn't take it to heart. However, I don't mind shattering his illusions either. Kevin. Which, before, do you mean by, the way we were before? The time when I tirelessly pursued you? Or the time when you clearly couldn't let go of Zoe but still kept giving me hope? Kevin was stunned. And I continued. When I said I wanted to break up, I meant it. I came to the disaster area just because of myself. Don't flatter yourself. And don't assume that I can't live without you. You said this bouquet of flowers was for me. But if you could see the devastation all around, you should know that no one wants to see flowers here. Kevin, what I liked in the past was the you in my imagination. Now that the illusion has been shattered, you are just a stranger in my eyes. Stop pestering me. The expectation in Kevin's eyes gradually turned into gloom as I finished speaking. He couldn't believe it and took a step forward to pull me. Yvonne, you can be angry. But don't always say harsh words. He still had illusions in his heart. I took a sudden step back to widen the distance between us. When I turned around and left, I realized that without realizing it, I had become the former Kevin. We both felt annoyed by the people who chased after us. Fortunately, having fulfilled my abscess, I won't look back. Kevin had been spoiled by me for so long. I thought that after pouring such a bucket of cold water on him, he would leave soon. But Kevin stayed in the disaster area wearing that inappropriate clothes. He lingered around me and tried to strike up a conversation with me. When he saw that I ignored him, gradually he stopped trying. He just looked for tasks everywhere and did the work that he was capable of. His leather shoes were worn out, so he wore the second-hand cotton shoes given by an uncle. His suit didn't keep him warm, so he somehow found a military coat. The girl liked his handsomeness. And after the bouquet of flowers was rejected by me, Kevin casually gave them to her. She often looked up at me and asked, "Sister, does brother Kevin have a girlfriend? He said that he came here to win back his girlfriend. But why haven't I seen his girlfriend?" Children don't understand the twists and turns of adults. I smiled and reached out to touch the top of her head. Just because you haven't seen her now doesn't mean you won't see her in the future. If you're curious, just wait patiently. The girl took these words seriously and nodded at me with bright eyes. She thought Kevin was a kind person who came to help her hometown. And Kevin really was. On the second day he was here, he spent a large sum of money buying a lot of supplies. When it comes to deeds, we should focus on the actions rather than the intentions. Considering that truckload of things, I endured the glances that Kevin occasionally cast in my direction. But I never expected that the words I casually said to coax the little girl would actually come true. On the third day Kevin was in the northwest. Zoe also came. "Kevin, would up, come and give me a hand quickly. My heel is stuck." Zoe was wearing high heels, a little cocktail dress, and her makeup was so exquisite that she could go to the theater and play the piano in the next second. I looked at her but didn't say anything. However, an obvious look of embarrassment appeared on Kevin's face beside me. "Zoe, why are you dressed like this?" As Kevin spoke, he bent down to pull out Zoe's high heel that was stuck in the dirt pit. But before they had walked a few steps, Zoe's heel got stuck again. "You bought this dress for me. Isn't it pretty?" Zoe pouted unhappily, with a wronged look in her eyes, making her look so pitiful that anyone would feel sorry for her. But Kevin's hand supporting her became tighter and tighter due to embarrassment. "You should go back quickly. This isn't the place for you. There are a lot of reporters over there. If you're photographed like this, who will want to attend your concert in the future?" Kevin advised in a low voice. But Zoe didn't care. "The people who attend my concert are these herdsmen. How could people who deal with cow dung every day understand art? Some people deliberately come here to feel superior and pretend to be kind. I'm not going to follow her example." Zoe's words were full of sarcasm towards me. Time was precious, and I didn't bother to argue with her. Kevin's gaze towards her dark, and little by little, "Zoe, it's already a great pity that such a thing happened in their hometown. Saying things like that. You're just like someone who asks, why don't they eat meat? Without understanding their hardships." Seeing that Kevin was unhappy, Zoe shut up sullenly. Her eyes swept over the girl beside me. And then she suddenly had an idea. She raised her hand and touched her belly. "Kevin, I came here to tell you some good news. You're going to be a father." As Zoe spoke, she looked at me provocatively. "Hey, haven't fulfilled my obsession. I'm sorry. Kevin has let you chase him for so long. But he has always been deeply in love with me. As a woman myself, I feel sorry for you. But love isn't something that can be given away. You can understand that, right?" Zoe wanted me to understand. I looked at her belly expressionlessly and said coldly, "What do you want me to understand about your premarital pregnancy? I'm not your mother. And I don't care about your business. You picked up trash and brought it home. And now you want to show it off. I question your intelligence and all your decisions." Zoe's face turned red with anger from my words. But I had already turned around and continued with my work. Kevin had no sense of responsibility. If Zoe got close to him, she would be getting close to sorrow. She was proud now. But sooner or later in the future, she would pay the price for what she did today. A few minutes later, Kevin, who finally came to his senses, rushed to my side. "Yvonne, it's not what you think between me and Zoe." Kevin's tone was flustered. Meeting my indifferent expression, he couldn't help but clench his fists with his 5 fingers. "That time when I was drunk and asked you to pick me up, you didn't come. A friend called Zoe over. And I mistook her for you. So There was a strong sense of regret in Kevin's tone. I wasn't moved by it. He took a deep breath, and when he spoke again, his words were full of accusations. "Yvonne, I've apologized for what I should apologize for. I've also explained what I should explain. How long are you going to give me the cold shoulder? Are you just being angry with me, or have you really changed your feelings? Since Kevin couldn't get my forgiveness, he questioned my character. I slapped him across the face. Kevin immediately shut up. He looked at me in surprise and disbelief. Yvonne. But before he could say anything else, the ground began to shake violently as if it had heard his arrogant words. An aftershock had come. The sky was overcast, and the ground was shaking. Amid countless cries of alarm, I grabbed the little girl's hand and ran urgently towards the open area. Halfway there, Shi, who was carrying a wounded person on his back, chased after us from behind. He grabbed the girl whose legs had gone weak with one hand and held my hand tightly with the other. Hurry! Run! We ran from the temporary hospital to the flat ground. After the aftershock ended, there were people all around us. But Kevin, who had been beside me just now, in order to protect Zoe, he had run to the telegraph pole where Zoe was taking a selfie to find a signal. The ground shook, and Zoe ran away. But Kevin, in order to save her, was pinned down firmly by the telegraph pole that suddenly fell to the ground. His cheeks were swollen and red, and blood was oozing from the corner of his mouth. Yet he still stubbornly looked in my direction. Yvonne, as long as you're safe, that's all that matters. Of course I was safe. But my safety had nothing to do with Kevin. In the future, it wouldn't have anything to do with him either. The telegraph pole was too heavy. When everyone worked together to rescue Kevin from under the pole, Kevin's blood had already stained his entire pair of pants red. As a doctor, she immediately organized a medical team to check his condition. Kevin's face was deathly pale, and he was extremely reluctant. When she ordered someone to cut open his clothes to expose the injured area, Kevin rolled his eyes and fainted directly. The completely toppled telegraph pole had broken Kevin's legs. And his dignity as a man. Zoe was sent to the ambulance together with him. When she heard the doctor's diagnosis, she started shaking like a leaf. How could it be so serious? He's Kevin, the president of the Kai Corporation. If something happens to him, his father will tear me apart. Zoe didn't care about Kevin's injury. She only cared about her own safety. She kept asking the doctor to cure Kevin. But after the surgery that lasted for 10 hours ended, Kevin had only managed to barely save his life. Kevin was disabled. It was 3 days later when the news reached my ears. Everything in the disaster area was back on track. After Shi and I sent the little girl to her new school, we took the same flight back to Beijing. The little girl didn't want to leave her hometown. Before I boarded the plane, she stuffed a bunch of unknown wildflowers into my hand. Sister, I have little sheep and calves. The mountains will protect us and help us grow up safely. Don't worry. You should also be as happy as me in your city. Okay? The simple wish of the young girl made it hard to refuse. I made a pinky promise with her. More than a dozen hours later, the plane landed in Beijing. Looking at everything familiar around me, I felt extremely at peace in my heart. Shi took my suitcase from the luggage carousel for me. Before we parted, he took out his phone, opened the QR code, and held it in front of me. Yvonne, we've been through life and death together now. Let's keep in touch in the future? Shi had a tall, straight nose and deep eyes. His slender and flexible fingers had saved countless lives in the disaster area. Looking at his face, I was just about to speak. Suddenly, Kevin's voice came from behind me. He was sitting in a wheelchair, his face pale, and he reached out his hand towards me. Yvonne, can we talk again? Some passersby stopped to look at him, feeling sorry for him. But looking at the persistent Kevin, I just frowned slightly. Kevin, what do you want to talk about? I asked indifferently. But Kevin's eyes suddenly turned red. Yvonne, all these years, I've been brooding over the fact that Zoe broke up with me abruptly. That's why, even though I was attracted to you, I kept setting obstacles between us. But after you left, I realized that my feelings for Zoe were just out of unwillingness. And the person I love is you. During the earthquake, I protected Zoe because she said she was pregnant with my child. And you were so strong that you didn't need protection. So I made that choice. But Yvonne, she lied to me. She wasn't pregnant at all. At the end, Kevin's voice choked up, full of regret. Yvonne. I'm a victim just like you. Let's not torture each other anymore. Okay? Even now. Kevin still wanted to make amends. I stared at his face for a long time. After a while, I said calmly, Kevin. I don't want to torture you. I just don't love you anymore. After saying that, I took the luggage from Shiyi's hand and walked past him. Even after walking a long way, I could still hear Kevin's suppressed sobs. Without my connections, without that jade guanyin pendant that was supposed to bring wealth, Kevin's company and his physical condition both plummeted at the same time. Zoe, who had caused him to end up like this, was vented on by him and suffered a fierce revenge. Kevin contacted the reporters and released the footage of Zoe's arrogant remarks in the disaster area. Zoe's show-off and arrogant appearance led to her being boycotted by the whole nation. The tickets for her concert became worthless. And even the dark secrets from her study abroad days were dug up by netizens. She kept saying that she loved art. But during the 4 semesters she studied abroad, she only showed up at school 7 times. She was keen on seeking excitement. At that time, she dumped Kevin and went abroad just for a handsome foreign guy she met online. After they broke up, she flirted with various foreign guys, not caring at all whether they had a fee in key or not. She completely ruined her reputation in the study abroad circle. Only then did she think of Kevin and decided to return to the country. After reading all this, Kevin was furious. After wetting himself again, he lay in wait downstairs at Zoe's house. He stabbed a knife into her heart. It's all your fault. You've ruined me. I actually lost the person who truly loved me because of a woman like you. I'm going to kill you. Zoe died on the spot. Kevin was sentenced to 10 years in prison for intentional homicide. The seasons changed. When spring came again the next year, I returned to the Northwest and brought a whole set of stationery and countless snacks for the little girl. The wind rustled, and the sky was clear and blue. The little girl's eyes lit up when she saw me, and she ran and threw herself into my arms. Sister, did you and brother make an appointment to give me a surprise? What brother? The girl raised her hand and pointed. The former ruins had now become a new city. Shiyi was wearing a white shirt and turned his head in the strong wind on the grassland. He gave me a bright smile. Yvonne. Long time no see. But I didn't want to wait for this 1.5 minutes. Long time no see. Dr. Shi. The little girl looked at me, then at Shiyi, and ran to bring him in front of me, holding one of our hands each. Sister. Brother. Will you both come to see me again next year? Shiyi was slightly taken aback and didn't say anything, leaving the choice to me. I looked up at him for a moment, and the corners of my lips curved slightly. Maybe. Upon hearing this, Shiyi's eyes suddenly lit up. I was pleased by his surprised look. Looking up at the fluffy clouds in the sky, I felt my heart starting to soften. The story that didn't start last year isn't too late to start this year. I, Yvonne, am not a coward who is afraid of doing something just because of a past bad experience. The end.